Giselle with InspireFulWomen.com. I make workout tutorials and workouts for women in their over 40s and almost 40s, just like myself. These workouts and these movements are really more about building strength and healthy movement patterns. So we're not doing tons of intense jumping around exercise. I do sweat in my workouts, but I'm not killing myself like I used to. And I am the strongest and healthiest that I've been in a long time working out in this way. So today we're going to be doing what's called the tall kneeling banded hip hinge. It's kind of a long name, but basically we're going to be down here in this position on our knees, and we're going to be practicing the hip hinge, which is basically just going from hip flexion, which is a crease in your hips, to hip extension, which is getting rid of the crease in your hips. Why, hello. All right, for this movement, you need something to mount your band to. So I'm going to show you a door anchor today, since that's what most of us can have access to that's put in a door, and a medium to heavy resistance band. So you've got both your glutes and both your hamstrings working all at once. So that's a lot of muscle power. So a nice hefty band. For the door anchor, you just stick it in the hinge side of the door, and we want to mount it fairly low, between like a few inches to maybe 10 inches off the ground. So I'm going to just stick mine in here right now. Close the door and I'll see you in a minute. Then you will take your band and loop it through wherever you're looping it. All right. Then you're going to want to work on a yoga mat. You could just use only that to do this. I find that once the resistance gets really strong, it's hard to not start like sliding backwards. So what I found was that putting my knees on these foam balance pads really helped a lot. This one's kind of cool because it can be stacked or put next to each other. It's got Velcro. So I'm going to put those together and put that there. You're going to put yourself inside the band like so. The band goes right in your hip crease. You could move, like if it's really uncomfortable there for some reason, you could put it up a little low, a little higher. But most of the time the hip crease is going to be best, and that's going to create the most resistance for your glutes and hamstrings to be doing the work. So I had actually tried it higher, like closer to my belly button, and I wasn't feeling any work here because it's just the angle of the resistance is different. All right, so let's get into position for the banded kneeling hip hinge. Sometimes you might have to readjust yourself a little bit by figuring out like what's the right amount of tension. You may end up needing a different band too, but basically when you're at the top, your main position will be your body kind of stacked in a line on top. If you're slightly leaned forward, that is actually can be good. That'll actually make your glutes and hamstrings work harder, as long as it's not from your back bending, but rather from your hips extending further. Your hips actually have several degrees of hip extension, meaning there's neutral when you're just standing straight up and down, and you can actually extend your hips a little bit further than that. And so that's good. You're working your glutes more in that case. So that will be the top position. Your legs are about hip width apart. Just do what's comfortable. And you're gonna keep your hands just at your hips like this is fine for that. Your feet will be with your toes kind of digging into the ground. If that's not comfortable, you can lay your feet on the ground like that. It might make you a little bit less stable, but you can just kind of see what feels comfortable for you. For me, this works good, especially when I'm using the foam mat. So this is your top position. You want to keep your whole torso, your back, your neck, everything here stays in neutral the whole time. So we don't have bending going on here. The bending is just here and some at your knee. But from here up, everything is just staying where it is as it moves down and up. Okay, so just keep that. So as you go down, don't let your neck go like that, and don't let your back round. Okay, so just try to keep this all stationary as you do the movement, okay? So we're in position. So let's actually do it now. The cue I want you to think about with this, as far as the main thing to remember, is that with a hip hinge, the less knee bending you get, the more your glutes will work. So when there's more knee bending, it's a little less work for the glutes. And we want there to be work for the glutes, right? That's the point. So there will be some knee bending, and depending on your limb length and your body and how you're proportioned, like, it's gonna be different. So just depending on how I look, don't base it fully on me. But the idea is to try to bend your knees as little as possible in the movement. But there's a certain point where if you don't bend your knees, you fall over, you know? So you'll find what works good for you for that. Anyhow, so here we are in position. As you go down, as I said, the idea is to try to not bend your knees too much, which means that your torso should actually be coming downwards. As I said, at a certain point, if you don't bend, like see me falling forward, you'll have to, you'll have to bend a little bit. But the idea is not so much that you're sitting back. See me sitting back? It's really more about bending. See my head coming down, and it's not really moving backwards. Does that make sense? That's probably the number one thing that I felt confused about, and I was asking the physical therapist about that. So in order to work the muscles the way we want to. So that's the thing to keep in mind, this kind of bending downwards, not just kind of sitting back, okay? So I'm just gonna do a few for you now. Thanks for being with me today, ladies. Once again, I'm Razel at inspirefulwomen.com. I create workout demos and workouts for women in their over 40s and almost 40s, just like myself. It's a different type of working out than you may be used to. So I come from, really sweating it out and just like pushing myself to the limit. You've probably been told that at a lot of workout classes that you've attended. And it was fine back in the day. But I find that it's just too intense for me these days. It would leave me really exhausted, sometimes for a full day or two afterwards, that level of intensity. And I found that doing resistance training at home at a slower pace didn't leave me feeling so exhausted. And I'm in the best shape of my life right now. So that's what I'm bringing to you. If you enjoy it,